All right, I've got 3 o'clock. At this time, I will be calling to order the December, I guess this is the November, December meeting of the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District Board. At this time, I'll ask for the clerk to call our roll.
Barnes,
Here.
Chaplin, Delgado,
Here.
Fasella,
Here on Zoom.
Hannon,
Here.
Nudo, Dial.
Here.
Quorum is present.
Thank you. Next item will be the approval of our agenda. After your review, please, a motion and a second.
I move the agenda be approved as distributed.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda for today's meeting. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, that motion carries. Our next item is a public hearing on the general tax levy ordinance for 2021. The primary purpose of this public hearing is to provide an opportunity for public input on the general tax levy ordinance of the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District for revenue year 2021 to be paid in calendar year 2022. Notice of the proposed tax increase for the Champaign-Urbana Mass Transit District appeared as a black bordered notice in the News Gazette on November 26, 2021, and the proposed tax levy was posted on the district's website, www.mtd.org, under the financial documents for public review. Are there any comments from the public on the proposed tax levy? Please approach the podium, state your name and address. This is an opportunity to make a statement to the Board of Directors as a whole. We do not answer questions. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes or less. Any comment from the public on the tax levy? Seeing none, have we received any electronic commentary from anyone, clerk?
No.
All right. Seeing no public comment, I'm going to declare this public hearing on the MTD's general tax levy ordinance for 2021 as closed. Moving on to the approval of our board meeting open session minutes from October 27th, 2021. Those are in your packet. Did I skip over that? Oops, sorry, I skipped over that. Anyone in the audience wish to discuss any item with the board at this time? Please come up to the podium. Seeing none, we'll move on to the open session board meeting minutes from October 27th, 2021. After your review, a motion and a second, please.
I move that the minute. I move that the minutes be approved as distributed.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the minutes of the October 27th, 2021 open session board meeting. All in favor, please say aye. Actually, we need to take a roll call because we're on Zoom. So let's back up.
Barnes,
Yes.
Chaplin,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Fasella,
Yes.
Hannon,
Here.
Nudo, Dial.
Yes, that motion carries. Our next item is communications. Any communications, Carl? Anything that the board would like to share that you may have received since we last met? Seeing and hearing none, we'll move on to the managing director's report.
All right, thank you, Chair. So this is the December report, and we are reporting on October statistics rather than November because we are early in the month of December and we didn't have a November board meeting. So in January, we will report on November and December simultaneously. Back to back, not simultaneously. So in October, there were 822,915 rides, and that is significantly more than last October, but it is less than September of 2021. So that's unusual. Normally, October is a big month for us because there are no school breaks. But we were actually 28,000 down from September. Some of that is because as we progressed through the semester this year, and October in particular, we made a pretty significant cut to the service level. If you'll recall, we eliminated service as a result of the employee shortage that we have been experiencing. And so that's why we have a shortage in ridership. And then our year-to-date ridership, it also was up significantly by 120%. I've got two additional charts to show you. One is October ridership by year, and what I'm doing here is I'm going back to 2019 because that was pre-pandemic. So normally we do the comparison from this year, which is orange 2021, and the previous year, which is blue 2020. But I want to show the pre-pandemic number as well, and you can see, as I mentioned earlier, October generally is a good month for us relative to ridership. And so we are still down somewhat because of the pandemic. There are still many faculty and staff members with the university who are working from home. Well, staff anyway, I'm not sure about faculty, although I think some. And there are still some virtual classes as well. So there's that. But then again, the aforementioned cut in service has significantly impacted us. And then the next chart is just to drive that point home. These are our passenger revenue hours. So these are the hours that we are in service. And in 2019, for the month of October, we were just shy of 28,000 hours of service. We plummeted in October of 2020, and we were only operating 22,300. But this year, because again of the aforementioned cuts, we're only operating 22,700. So we're still down 18% from what we were pre-pandemic. And again, that's primarily because of the employee shortage. So I just think that's it's important to keep in mind as we try to do any analysis with ridership and service. Moving on to operating revenue. The October 2021 operating revenue was 24.8% above October 2020, and the year-to-date operating revenue was 20.4% above the previous fiscal year. Yes?
Dick, have you got a question?
Yeah,
No, wait a minute. I was asking Dick first. No,
I
Bruce.
do, yeah.
Go ahead.
Any shortening of the employee shortage? Any reduction?
Not that I would be able to put my finger on right now. I will say this, though. We have had several new trainee classes in a row. The last several have been larger classes than we had previously been doing. So the combination of our employee services department and our safety and training department have been working together. And our operations department, because our operations department provides many of the trainers. All three of those departments are working really well together to increase the number of people that are coming in through the door and getting them trained to be good, safe operators. So I think we're on our way. But I don't have anything that I can really definitively tell you that we've improved by X percent or Y number or anything like that. And Bruce, to be perfectly honest with you, this is going to be a many months, if not years long process to get back to where we need to be, because we can only train people so quickly. So no matter how well those three departments are working together, we are still struggling with resignations in this great resignation that is going on, and we have our own unique issues too. So we're getting there, we're moving in the right direction, I believe, but I don't have anything that I can actually pinpoint right now. Was that, Dick, did you have a question also? No? Okay. I'm not sure where I was, but I think I was just going to comment that our operating revenues are up because we're collecting fares again relative to what we were doing last year when we had suspended fare enforcement. So that's why you're seeing those large increases. Operating expenses are also up, but only 11.2% for October and 11.4% for the year. That is because we are providing more service than we were last year, but in addition to that, we've had cost of living increases in wages, and we have implemented some initiatives that are costing money. We raised the training wage rate. If you'll recall, we compressed the progression rate in our operator wages. So we did some things that are adding to our expenses to help attract people to get in through the door. So that is what we were expecting, and that was budgeted. Speaking of the budget, the operating revenues were $124,000 above budget, and the operating expenses were $1.7 million below budget. And then, outside of that data, I just want to, it's in my notes, so you probably read this, but the one I really want to highlight is that we had, for the first time that I'm aware of, I didn't work for the district in the 70s, so maybe there were some times in the 70s when this was a problem, but I wasn't here then, and I was in middle school. We have had a fuel shortage, and that primarily is because the Marathon terminal out on the west end of town had no fuel for several weeks in a row, and we normally fill our underground storage tanks every week. Not normally, we do. We fill our tanks every week, and so we got into a bind pretty quickly, and our parts department did a great job of shopping around, and we got a couple of deliveries lined up from Chicago in a row. Cost a little more money because the delivery charge was more than what we pay when it's all done locally. But it was only about a $3,000 difference between our normal charges and these charges. But we were able to keep our operations going. So kudos to our parts department in their ability to get things lined up. With that, I will take any questions through page 33.
Any questions for Carl from the board? And I don't see anything, and I don't hear anything, so we will move out of the reports and move into action items. Our first action item will be on page 34, and that will be the ordinance 2021-3, the general tax levy ordinance for 2021, which we discussed at our last meeting. Carl, you want to comment on this at all?
I am happy to answer any questions, but we did discuss this in the last meeting, so unless there's anything new, I don't have anything.
I'm not seeing any questions at this time. I'm going to ask for a motion and a second to open discussion on the levy ordinance. Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the levy ordinance 2021-3. Any discussion from the board on the levy ordinance? Seeing and hearing none, we will have a roll call.
Barnes,
Yes.
Chaplin,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Vasella,
No.
Hannan,
Yes.
Nudo,
Yes.
Dial.
Yes, that ordinance passes. Our next item is the development agreement between MTD and Core Champaign Hockey LLC. Carl.
Okay, for this, I'm going to ask Jane Sullivan and Guy Hall, the attorney that is representing us in this effort, to join me up here. And I want to point out that we have several members from the Core Champaign hockey team that are present. So if you have questions that you would like to direct to them, the podium is available for them to come up and answer their questions. I'd introduce everybody, but I can't, the podium is in the way and I can't see who's with Hans over there. Brian, okay, so we have Brian Neiswinder and Hans Grote-Lushen from Core Champaign Hockey. Thank you for coming. And so I'm going to turn it over to Jane to initiate things. And as I mentioned, Guy is here also. Just a quick explanation why we're using Guy in this effort and not our very capable normal counsel that we use. But remember that our normal counsel is actually the city of Champaign's legal counsel, their legal department, and their primary job is to represent the city, and the city is involved with this project, and we will have an intergovernmental agreement with the city, and so they couldn't represent both sides, and so we went out and got an additional attorney, because you can never have enough attorneys. We got a third-party attorney, and Guy is that individual. So, Jane?
Thank you. I wanted to give you guys an overview of kind of how we got here and where we're going, and I have a slide for that. Thank you. Okay, so you will recall that in April 2019, the board approved a commitment from the district of $25 million to this project, the yards, which includes expansion of Illinois Terminal and some private development as well. We applied for 3 grants, and in November 2019, we finally got a grant award of just a little over $17 million to contribute to this project. And then we spent that time between November 2019 and April 2020 to just kind of get things organized and do a competitive procurement process for a NEPA consultant. NEPA is the environmental review requirement that took us about a year and a half or so to make sure that the project isn't having a significant impact on the environment. So we hired a contractor to help us through that process in April, and you all approved that award. And then just a few months ago in September, we completed the NEPA process with a finding of no significant impact, so 2 big thumbs up from the Federal Transit Administration. And here we are. We are requesting approval for the development agreement between MTD and Core Champaign Hockey. And we could talk about that a little more. I have some information in the memo, of course. But before we do that, just kind of a preview of what's to come. Some of our next steps are the intergovernmental agreement with the city of Champaign. MTD and Core will develop a request for proposals for an architecture and engineering firm to complete the final design for this project. And then eventually we will work with that A&E firm to develop an invitation for bid for a contractor to actually construct this project. So just kind of an overview of the funding again on this next slide. So what you're seeing in those first 3 rows is what has already been committed and was approved by the board in April 2019. And what we're asking for, as is written in this agreement, is an additional $4 million that we intend to use federal funding for to bring MTD's contribution to $29 million. And you'll see here that the contribution that Core Champaign Hockey is committing to at this point is $40,200,000. And right now our total project cost is at approximately $69,200,000. But one of our next steps of hiring an A&E firm will kind of make the whole project estimate more accurate. and we'll have kind of better estimates soon. But this is what we have for now. I think I'll stop there. Do you want to add anything, Guy, or do we want to take questions?
I'm happy to, just have state questions.
I would like to just add one thing. I just kind of want to be on the record that this is what we know today. And one thing that we know is that these are very early estimates still. And so as Jane alluded to, once we get the architects and engineers actually designing the facility, we'll have a better handle on costs. I think, and I just want you to have an awareness that we probably will be making adjustments to this, and that very likely will be an adjustment up. It won't be very likely that it will be an adjustment down. But we just don't know what that's going to be yet. But the pandemic has really turned upside down the construction market and the supply chain system, and so that will increase costs. I feel fairly certain of. So I just want to say that so that you can keep that in the back of your mind. But I don't have any dollar figures to give you today.
Questions from the board? Bruce?
This is all between here and Logan, right?
That's correct. It's all
Right.
north of Logan,
And between the tracks and,
between Logan and University, and the tracks and Market Street.
right,
And Bruce, the whole yards is from as it is concepted is from University down to Springfield Avenue, but the portion between Logan and Springfield will be phase 2. And so we're referring to this as phase 1, this north of Logan portion that's between University and Logan, and that so none of the activities south of Logan, between Logan and Springfield, are included in this. That will be down the road, but quite frankly, we care about it and it's part of the whole project, but MTD won't be directly involved, indirectly certainly, but not directly involved with the activities south of Logan.
so what sort of facility will, outside the MTD, will be between here and Logan?
So this project cost that you have envisions doing some rehabilitation work to the current facility that we sit in, Illinois Terminal as it exists, expanding, let's see, maybe the best way to answer this is,
Further down,
let me direct you to page 59 in your packet, the red page number, page 59. And you can see Illinois Terminal kind of has that striped roof on it, and then the yellow, pink, and green and beige portion of the building that comes off in the southern portion of that. That's the expansion of Illinois Terminal proper, and then you can see that we add additional transit platforms to the south of that, and then you see Logan. Up above that, that's on the first floor, above that is parking deck, and that is they're all attached. That portion of the building and the parking deck are attached, and then they stretch over Market Street, which is the north-south street immediately to the left of Illinois Terminal, and then there's a larger pink area there, and that is the residential component of the structure that Cord Champaign Hockey is responsible for, and the entrance ramp to the parking deck is in the middle of that building. So in short, the answer to your question is rehab Illinois Terminal, expand Illinois Terminal, build a residential tower, and parking.
Margaret?
you're not closing a street in here.
No streets are being closed.
Margaret?
I've mentioned these things to Carl before, but I think it might be useful to have everybody else hear about it. If we approve this, I think it should be understood that we are approving spending the extra $4 million. This is sort of a whole package, so it's two things at once. We approve the agreement as stands, and we add more money. The thing that concerned me when I read the agreement was the construction management team, who are apparently the people in charge. Sort of, I guess you might call it the executive committee that's going to keep track of things and make sure things get moving along. And I was concerned as to who is going to select the members of this committee. And Carl's answer, and I think I got it right, was that he would pick, or he and his colleagues, or however, would pick the MTD people, and the developer would pick the representatives of the developer. I guess that's all. I just wanted to sort of make that clear. I like to know, who's in charge? Where does the buck stop? If there are conflicts or questions or problems, who has the final say in how they're solved?
Additional questions from the board? Al?
Thank you, Brad. Please, board members, forgive me. This may have been covered in a previous meeting before I came on the board, so I just need a little clarification after reading this a couple times. On page 47, which is page 10 of the contract, the known cost at this time, it says right about in the middle of number F, as in Francis, the allocation of other costs undertaken such that MTD shall pay 40%, estimated at $5 million of the cost of the parking deck, and estimated $6 million for structural elements of the foundation columns of the building in which the parking deck will be located. So $11 million, correct? The way the sentence is structured, it looks like 5 and 6, there's $1 million difference, or is it 11 million?
There is $11 million of MTD participation in the part of the structure that is not necessarily directly related to transit operations. We're estimating that $5 million of that $11 million will be directly put into the parking deck portion of the structure, and then $6 million will be used in the residential tower because the residential tower is and really that's not even a good term for it. Let me say this: the residential part of the structure is still a part of the whole structure that we're building, and that the parking deck ramp goes right through it, and so that allows us to utilize $6 million, and it's just an estimate, as I said earlier, but $6 million on the frame of that part of the structure, the skin of that part of the structure, the foundation part of that structure. And so that's the mixed use element of the building, where the residential tower, the residential portion of the structure in of itself is not related to transit, but it's in the same structure that is, and so we're sharing money. And that's a benefit that we bring to the developer that, quite frankly, is one of the reasons why they're interested in this project.
Okay, so the $11 million are non-MTD related at this stage, and for the entire building, portion of that is private or
I would say not directly MTD related. It's not directly related to the transit operations.
Okay, that helps me a lot, thank you. And then on going back to 7, which I wanted to start with the one on page 10, on the
Sorry, are you looking at the black page 10?
page 7 of the contract, page 44 of the.
Gotcha.
and that would be Roman numeral 4. That would be on the fair share of revenue of the project portion. So $200,000 for 30 years, correct? And what, I mean, I'm trying to figure out how is that, how did we arrive at that number, and what is it essentially for? Is this to reimburse for part of the 11 million? That was my thinking on this.
Yes, so $200,000 for 30 years is $6 million.
Right.
And so that is the return on investment, the fair share of revenue, that Core Champaign Hockey or its successors will make payments to MTD to pay back that $6 million that we are letting, that are going into that portion of the structure. So they get to take advantage of that money, and it essentially is interest-free
yeah.
for them, which is very attractive for them, and we get the money back, which is very attractive to us, because we can put that into the operations.
It's also a
of the
great
new structure.
responsibility of the taxpayer, so I think it's a great concept there. Then the 5% of gross revenues of the private project, my interpretation, just reading it without knowing the background of the negotiations, is that this is almost like a lease payment for the space, but this is being condoized, right? I mean, the building's condoized. The private part is going to pay property taxes, so it's going to have a separate property tax number, and it's going to be taxed, correct?
Yes. There is a portion of the building that will be taxable for property taxes, yes.
Okay, so the building is essentially condoized. There's going to be some mechanism for the taxing bodies to tax the building that is taxable.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes.
So
Now this is in a TIF, so,
it stays in the TIF, I know.
yeah, okay.
So what is the estimated amount of the property, of the 5% of gross revenues if the place was, typically in real estate, 90% occupancy is great. So, I mean, have you done some pro formas on what that revenue comes in, and how does that match up with the other $5 million that's, part of the parking deck?
I'm going to ask Hans or Brian, or Hans and Brian, to step up to the podium to attempt to answer that question, if I may.
Did you get the gist of that, Hans?
I think so.
Hans, if you push the button on the right of the microphone, there you
There
go.
we go, yeah. I think I understood you're asking about an estimate on pro formas for 5% of the gross revenues. And we didn't bring specific numbers with us. We have those available, but not here at this meeting. Oh, sure. I can say that again. So you're asking about $200,000 or the 5% of gross revenues. And do we have a projection or pro forma of the gross revenues? And yes, we do, but not here at the meeting. We didn't bring it. And so I don't know those numbers, but we can look them up and go back through the board.
I'm not going to look at you when I'm talking, but because
Yeah,
I can
that's
talk
okay.
in the microphone. But so then, I know with point A, Roman numeral 4A, that amount covers the $5 million that's, the $6 million that we're talking about on page 10. And then the 5% of the gross revenues of all the leases, again, I'm just thinking from a break-even standpoint, is that going to cover the other $5 million?
Mr. Chair, could I address that real quick? This is Michelle Wright, Finance Director. Those payments are the greater of. It's not both. The sentence before says the greater of, which shall be the greater amount in an annual payment of. So it's
Oh, I
either the
see it.
200,000 or the 5% of revenues.
My apologies. Okay, so
So essentially, Alan, the $200,000 is the minimum. So if the 5% of revenue for that portion of the building exceeds 200,000, then whatever that amount is would be the payment from the private developer to MTD. But if 5% is less than 200,000, then they pay the 200,000.
I understand.
Okay.
One other question. I'll probably come back to that one, but it's not, I haven't fleshed it out yet, so I need to think about it a little bit more. The building, in essence, is going to have maintenance done to it. Landscaping done to it, snow removal done to it. The participants on the private side will have use of that landscaping, maintenance, whatever. Is there, I didn't see anything in the contract here that covers what I would call a double net lease. It's not a triple net lease, because triple net includes taxes. Well, I know, but still, there's costs involved in owning the building.
Sorry, we'll have an operations and maintenance agreement at some point, but that's
not in place.
That's not a part of this agreement.
It was silent on this, and so I didn't see it here, and I just wanted to make sure that that was a part of the proration of costs for use of the building and costs incurred by the MTD. That makes sense.
I assume that this parking deck, the spaces will be rented, paid for? Who collects that money?
So MTD will own the parking deck, but we don't have a specialty in operating a parking deck. The city of Champaign does, and so as a part of our intergovernmental agreement, which we have not brought to you yet, but as a part of the intergovernmental agreement or subsequent to the intergovernmental agreement, we will have an agreement with the city to operate the parking deck. So they'll manage the operations. They'll collect the the parking revenue.
Fees.
The parking fees, thank you. So that'll be a part of again, not this agreement with the developer, but with the agreement with the city of Champaign.
And will there be a pro forma on that to show estimated revenues versus annual costs and capitalized costs?
Relative to parking?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when we do the parking agreement, that we'll have that, yes.
So we can, for the taxpayer, make sure that that $6 million investment is one that's worthwhile.
So let me clarify. The $6 million will go to the part of the
Building.
structure that is intertwined with the residential component. The $5 million is purely for the parking structure, and so the parking MTD will also see that $5 million come back over that 30-year period, but that will come through the parking revenues. And again, it's not in this agreement because it's not relative to the developers. That will be relative to the intergovernmental agreement, and so that will be a separate but also additional revenue stream for the district to pay back that $5 million.
And we'll be able to see the return on investment to that. Okay, I'm sorry to the rest of the board members. I didn't know if that was covered before, but I just wanted to clarify.
Has not, and those are good questions, Al. Any other questions from the board, either here or remote?
I do have my hand up. It works in Zoom.
Go ahead, Phil.
Yeah, thank you. A couple of quick questions. So obviously our part of this is prevailing wage. Are the developers having to deal with prevailing wage on the build out of the apartments or on phase 2 or both?
Prevailing wage will apply to the entire project, even south of Logan, I believe, or at least most of south of Logan, but all of north of Logan, prevailing wage will be in effect. South of Logan is a little trickier, and I don't know if Hans wants to, or Brian wants to speak to this, but you know, if things move forward with that, and as we've originally envisioned, and the public is aware that we've talked about there being a sports arena, that would be a University of Illinois component, and they have the same prevailing wage requirements that MTD does, and so that would bring prevailing wage into that. I'm not clear about the parking. I suspect the hotel and convention center prevailing wage may not apply to that. I'm not 100% clear. Are you shaking your head, or you're shaking and nodding? So I'm.
Anytime we do a development agreement with the city,
Prevailing
then
wage.
we're subject to prevailing wage requirements.
Right, okay,
So any part of the project that's part of a development agreement with the city or with MTD, we're subject to prevailing wage.
Great.
So very, very likely, all of it is.
Question.
I think Phil might have something else. Anything else, Phil? Go ahead.
Yeah, so that does increase your costs and might be part of the reason why we're trying to subsidize with this. As far as the $6 million goes, and this might be a question for our legal counsel, I am assuming that these, Mr. Grodelution and Mr. Neitzwinder are probably going to be getting some debt financing on this. Would our $6 million be subordinated to their lenders? So if the economy goes bad in a couple of years, the project goes into foreclosure or receivership, would we be subordinated to the bank getting its money back?
I think sorry. Yes, so this is Guy Hall. The way we've structured this in this development agreement is, you know, this is money coming through the Federal Transit Administration, and their expectation is that the public body, the MTD, will recover those funds over the course of time, which has been selected by this provision that Mr. Nudo addressed earlier. So our expectation is that any other financing arrangement that the developer would have would be subordinate to the MTD's interest, because that's part of what MTD has to do to satisfy the Federal Transit Administration under a master agreement in order to get these funds. So the bottom line, I think, to answer your question, is the MTD and the federal funds are going to come first in terms of repayment. We are required to put a restriction on the property and the transaction as a whole to confirm the terms that we have here dealing with the fair share of revenue and cost for those dollars to be recovered over time. Whether the gentlemen that are here this afternoon would, you know, let's say, be the owners of the property 5 years down the road after the project is completed or such. So anybody who would take over that property would know that it is subject to that condition. Does that help answer your question?
That's very good. I guess my next question would be, maybe for Jane, I'm not sure, but we're talking about this 5307 as well as, and I don't know if that was put in place because of some cost overages that we're anticipating, but also just in general, if we're talking about this going over 29 million, would these be probably local funds that we would be then committing, or are we anticipating getting additional state and federal help to help cover that potential shortage?
Phil, are you talking about the additional 4 million or anything that might come above and beyond the 29 million?
I'm actually curious about both. If the additional 4 million was something we had not originally anticipated, was that something you brought in to cover overages, or where did that come from? And then also, how do we plan to cover future overages?
So I can just speak to the 5307, which is MTD's federal funding that is allocated to us through a formula, and this 4 million we has already been allocated to us, and we've kind of been holding it, and so that's federal funds. Carl, do you want to talk about above and beyond that?
Yeah, so essentially we have two buckets of money that we can use for this. Well, three, the way that it's laid out here. We've got the bus and bus facility grant, and we have our formula funds, which we shortened to 5307. The formula funds, that's federal money that is appropriated to us every year as a part of the Surface Transportation Act. So we receive, I don't know, I think it's like 6 million a year, or I don't know. We receive an amount every year, and that's about to go up, in fact, as a result of the most recent Surface Transportation Act that was just passed as a part of the infrastructure bill. But we have been holding on to that money in anticipation of using it for this project, and we indicated that back in April of 2019 when the board approved the 25 million. Part of that conversation was that we had these formula funds that were not committed yet, but that we were holding on to them because we knew that there would be, as we progressed, we'd get better numbers, better estimates, and we didn't know about the pandemic at the time, but we knew that costs would increase, and so we had that money that we were holding in reserve. In addition to that, we have our local capital reserve, which is that 7.7 million identified on the screen. That is MTD's capital reserve fund, which we also have been holding on to in reserve, or a portion of it at least, anticipating that it would go toward this project. And so that is bearing out with both of these additional buckets of money that are in addition to that initial $17.2 million bus facility grant. Yeah.
So I think his question was, if you run out of the 29 million, what's your next move?
So, okay, I didn't pick up on that part. Both of those buckets that that I just discussed, we have not exhausted. We still have money that we have held in reserve, both for our capital reserve and our formula funding. So we're not, the coffers are not empty. We're not emptying them out with this 29 million.
Yeah, I had a question.
Bruce, go ahead.
South of Logan, what is the MTD interest in money in a financial sense?
Yeah, there won't be MTD funds that go into the portion of the Yards project south of Logan. We're, of course, very interested in it, and we've been an active participant
Right.
in that. But we were not directly funding any portion of that.
So if we were to build a bridge across Logan, we'd probably be participating in that cost, I imagine.
Yeah, I think the structure that would span over Logan, which I don't even know if that's on this drawing, but that part of the structure would be a pedestrian walkway, at least how we've envisioned it up until this point. Again, we don't have architects on board. That will be a part of phase 2, so that the construction of that pedestrian walkway would be a part of phase 2, not a part of phase 1. We're not going to build a bridge to nowhere.
Additional board questions? Dick?
Bringing up south of Logan, have there been any changes in the situation with athletic department in their progress?
The project team, which includes the university, has been actively working on south of Logan. We all are still very interested in making sure that moves forward. We're dedicated to making it happen, but there are, just in full transparency and honesty, there are some financial concerns with the south of Logan portion. The increase to construction costs as a direct result of the pandemic and the supply chain issue and all of that is dramatic. And that portion of the overall project south of Logan, we, the team, thought that we had all the funding and financing in place, and then the pandemic has increased it by about 30%. And so that's a lot of money. And we are actively working as a team to try to solve that problem.
We're fortunate to be able to proceed with north of Logan.
We are very fortunate, and I'll just say, and I'm not just saying it because they're here, but the development partners that we have in this project, they have, they're committed to the whole thing and they want to see the whole thing happen. But they have, expressed to us all along that even if nothing happens south of Logan, they want to do this project with us north of Logan. And they've been great partners and very motivated to keep continuing to move the project forward. It would have been really easy when things started to unravel a bit south of Logan to just step on the brakes for the north of Logan part. And they didn't do that. They never expressed that they wanted to do that, and we've moved ahead the entire time. So yes, we're very lucky that they are our partners.
Any questions for Carl, the developers, or staff on this item? Seeing and hearing none, I will ask for a motion to approve this development agreement between the CUMTD and Core Champaign Hockey LLC.
So moved.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve this development agreement. Let's have a roll call on this.
Barnes,
Yes.
Chaplin,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Vasella,
I really think we need more information, so I would be no right now, but, that could change if we had a maintenance agreement and an idea of what that 5% would be.
Hannon,
Yes.
Nudo,
Yes.
Dial.
Yes, that motion carries. Thank you for coming today, gentlemen. Appreciate it. Our next action item is the hydrogen station change orders, number 8 and number 10. Jane.
I'm just getting to the page, sorry.
We got a couple, 3 mics open too. Check your mics.
Okay, this action item is for 2 change orders in the same scope on our contract with Trillium for the hydrogen production station. So I think we've mentioned in a board meeting before, I know we've talked about the high water table that we encountered in construction, and I think we've also mentioned that we ran into some contaminated soil, and that soil had to be hauled off. They had originally planned on using the soil that was dug to make room for the hydrogen station. They originally planned to use it for some fill, but because of the high water table, they had to use a different material, and they couldn't use the soil that was already on site. So soil had to be hauled off, and it had to be treated, and there was an extra fee because it was contaminated. And the original estimate for this was in change order 8, almost 49,000. And then as they got into it, there was more soil than they expected, which added another 11,660. So together, those two change orders are over Carl's spending authority of 50,000. So we need your approval. And the reason it's a little late was because it took some time to get the paperwork in order and for us to realize, oh, even though these are 2 separate change orders, it's the same scope. And so we really need to treat them as one and request board approval. So that's kind of how we got to where we are. I think that's all I have to say. I guess I'll just add, on the next page, page 66, you can see an image of that soil that has some tar and other material mixed in. And we're covering the change orders on this contract with 100% federal funds. And I'm happy to take questions.
Questions for staff on this item? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to approve change orders 8 and 10 for the hydrogen station project.
So moved.
Seconded?
It's been moved and seconded to approve change orders 8 and 10 for the hydrogen station project. Let's do a roll call on this.
Barnes,
Yes.
Chaplin,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Fasella,
Yes.
Hannan,
Yes.
Nudo,
Yes.
Dial.
Yes, that motion carries. At this time, the board will be moving to closed session to consider the purchase or lease of real property for use by the MTD and to consider pending or probable litigation. Following our closed session, we will briefly return to open session to handle a couple action items, and then we will adjourn for the evening. This time, I'll ask for a roll call to move to, actually, we'll need a motion in a second for that.
So I would motion that we go into closed session.
It's been moved and seconded to move to closed session. Please have a roll call.
Barnes,
Yes.
Chaplin,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Fasella,
Yes.
Hannan,
Yes.
Nudo,
Yes.
Dial.
Yes, that motion carries. We'll take about 5 minutes and then we're going to move right into closed session. We've got several items to discuss here. It's 4:40 p.m. on, this says August 12th. That's not right. December 8th, 2021. CUMTD board is moving back into open session, and we will be taking action on our next action item, which is the purchase agreement for 1207 East University in Urbana. Carl, do you want to share any information on this at this time, or?
I guess I will just say, since we've just been talking about this in closed session, for the public's point of view, I will say that this is the property that we use for our CDL training facility, and we have been using it for the last 5 years under a lease arrangement with the owner, and now we are triggering an option to purchase so that we can own it and not make lease payments or pay property tax on it, since we are tax exempt.
Understood. At this time, I will ask for a motion and a second on this particular item to open board discussion. It's been moved and seconded to consider purchase agreement for 1207 East University in Urbana, what is commonly known as our training facility. Questions from the board?
I guess I missed the closed session and this may have been answered in it.
I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry, Phil. I didn't catch the tail end of what you said.
He said he missed
Oh,
the
I
discussion.
I missed the closed session, so I guess I have a question for Carl on this one. Have we, and you could just tell me if we shouldn't talk about this outside of closed session, but have we talked with legal counsel about if we have any chance of prevailing in court to enforce what we thought were the original terms, or if we have any recourse against the law firm that represented us when we entered into this contract in 2016?
I couldn't understand him.
I think I was able to understand. That did come up. We did discuss it. I think that would be a closed session question, and so perhaps you and I can discuss that
He'll have to abstain.
separately.
Anything else for staff or Carl on this item from the board? Seeing and hearing none, we will ask for a roll call on the purchase agreement for 1207 East University.
Barnes,
Yes.
Chaplin,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Fasella,
No.
Hannan,
Yes.
Nudo,
Yes.
Dial.
Yes, that motion carries. Our next item is a settlement agreement between the United States of America, the Department of Justice, and the MTD. Carl.
So back in 2019, the Department of Justice received a complaint about our website and an accessibility issue with that. And so that triggered a series of actions from the Department of Justice. And fast forward to today, we've resolved the issues with the website. And our software developer, Ryan Blackman, who I think is on his way up here, got on top of those changes very quickly. And but this is kind of codifying that final settlement agreement. And so I think staff at this point is asking the trustees to authorize me to sign this agreement with the Department of Justice.
Questions for Carl or staff on this item? Seeing and hearing none, I'll ask for a motion and a second to approve the settlement agreement between the United States of America and the MTD.
I move that we authorize the managing director to sign this agreement.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve this settlement agreement between the Department of Justice and the MTD. We'll have a roll call.
Barnes,
Yes.
Chaplin. Delgado,
Yes.
Vasella,
Yes.
Hannon,
Yes.
Nudo,
Yes.
Dial.
Yes, that motion carries. Our last item of business today is the new web accessibility policy. Carl.
And for that, I am going to turn it over to Ryan Blackman, our software development manager, to introduce.
Before we get there, I want to remind everybody that a week from tomorrow evening is the gala at, what's the place? Temponi's, for all the board members and staff.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Ryan Blackman, the software development manager, as Carl said. So the web accessibility policy that we are asking you to approve today does a number of things to kind of formalize our approach to web accessibility. It lays out that our websites are going to adhere to the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines version 2.1, which is the current kind of widely accepted standard for accessibility on the web. It also appoints a web accessibility coordinator that will be our special services manager, and that role will be someone who acts as a single point of contact for any web accessibility concerns. So if we receive any future complaints about web accessibility or anything like that, that position will make sure those get handled appropriately, get routed to the right people, get followed up on in a timely manner, that sort of thing. It defines an accessibility statement that we will post publicly, kind of publicly stating our commitment to accessibility. And it lays out training for various staff positions that interact with web content and generate content that needs to be accessible. It lays out training requirements for those positions to ensure that they're properly trained on an accessibility front. I think that covers pretty much all of it. I believe it's in your board packet, so we'll take questions.
Questions for Ryan on this new accessibility package? Seeing none, we'll ask for a motion and a second to approve this item.
I move that we approve this policy.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded to approve our web accessibility policy. Roll call, please.
Barnes,
Yes.
Chaplin. Delgado,
Yes.
Vasella,
Yes.
Hannon,
Yes.
Nudo,
Yes.
Dial.
Yes, that motion carries. That was our last action item. Again, a reminder for Thursday, the 16th, would be the board dinner that Bruce mentioned. Our next regular meeting will be Wednesday, January 26, 2022 at 3 o'clock, right here at the Illinois Terminal. At this time, I'll ask for a motion and a second to...
Brad,
Drew?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Just one other thing. we have our new
Oh, yes.
advisory board member present for the first time, and so she came back after the closed session, so I know you wanted.
Yeah, Brianna, why don't you introduce yourself to the board and tell us about your studies and your interest here in the MTD?
Hi, I'm a first year master's student in urban planning, and I'm interested in focusing on transportation issues. And so public transit is one of the many things that, you know, is important for transportation planning. So that drew me to getting involved with ISG as their transportation representative. And so I'm excited to be with you guys here and learn more about what you all do, and then seeing how that affects the local community.
Well, thank you for participating. We appreciate it. We're always happy to have a student participant on the advisory board, so thank you. All right, and thanks for coming back to introduce yourself to us. We appreciate it. All right, with that, we'll ask for a motion and a second to adjourn our meeting today. I'm going to. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to go the whole way because we've got him on. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Come on, Dick.
How about a roll call? Give us a roll call for adjournment.
Okay. Barnes,
Yes?
Chaplin,
Yes.
Delgado,
Yes.
Fasella,
Yes.
Hannon,
Yes.
Nudo,
Yeah.
Dial.
Yes, we are adjourned. Thank you.